I am so excited to welcome you all to this really beautiful, exciting program. And I am just overwhelmed by how many people are interested in this topic and who are joining us from all around the world. I am Sarah Aroeste. I am director of the Monastir Project, which I'll be talking about in just a minute. And we have such a wonderful program today. We're going to get right to it. But first, just a little bit of housekeeping. Because we have such a busy program, there are some speakers who might now be in different screens on your Zoom. So go ahead and pin me if you know how to do that so that I will always be near the top because I will be the moderator. And you can also, in your preferences, you can make sure that the speaker view is on so that whoever is speaking will also appear big on your screen. So go ahead and do that if you haven't already. And we know that a lot of people have questions. They've already been emailing me ahead of time with some wonderful questions. We are going to save the Q&A for the very, very end. So if you could please hold on to your questions and ask them at the end of the program. And we'll also ask you to raise your hand in the preferences if you do have a question so that we know that it's not just a comment, but a question. Because of course, we know for these types of Zooms, people love to chat with each other in the chat section, but as I go through them, it will be easier for me to see which ones are questions if it also has that little icon that you are raising your hand. Okay, so before I get started with the formal program, I do want to say one little thing just to make sure we're all on the same page. This program is not a program about the history of the Jews of Monastir. Okay, so if that's what you're looking for, that is not what this program is. Of course, the history will be touched upon because it is such a critical part about the story that we'll be telling today. But instead, today's program is really about the efforts today to preserve the wonderful Jewish history of Monastir and the greater story of Jews from Macedonia. So the history will be touched upon, but this is really a contemporary lens that we're looking through today. So I'm going to get started to explain why I am the director of the Monastir Project, what that's all about, and why I have chosen this esteemed panel to join me today. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Okay, so here we go. My story starts with this young gentleman here. This is my grandfather with the arrow pointing to him. This picture was taken in about 1911. My grandfather was born in 1907 in Monastir, the city we are here to talk about today. Now, he was getting all dressed up for the Pasha to come through town, sort of like the governor. And he, with his uncle Max, who is beside him, had a lovely life in Monastir. People weren't particularly wealthy, but the Jewish community, they were happy, and it was a very rich in spirit community, as many of you, I think, know, because many of you on this call do have a connection already to Monastir. And that being said, my family was one of the groups of families that left during the Balkan Wars of 1912 and 1913. And my family did come to the United States, and they settled in Rochester, New York. Now, this picture is very important because you see my grandfather here as an 18-year-old. This picture was taken in 1925. Next to him is my papu, my grandfather's grandfather, Menachem. And next to him is the man I want to introduce today. That is Rabbi Dien, who was one of the most esteemed and revered rabbis of Monastir. Now, Rabbi Dien came to North America and South America as well in the 1920s to meet with monastirly families precisely to raise money for activities happening back home in Monastir. Now, this picture shows that my family, even though they were living in Rochester, New York at the time, they were still very connected to their roots and their families still left in Monastir. And so much so that the rabbi came to visit them to raise money for projects, and in particular, the cemetery. It is the largest Jewish cemetery in the Balkans, and this cemetery is going to be very important to the story of this program. I do have one relative who is still alive who was born in Monastir, and she is on this call. This is my cousin, Rochelle Nachmias. This picture was taken. Oh, I see her waving. Everybody wave to Rochelle. This picture was taken at her 100th birthday. That was actually a couple of years ago. She is now the sprightly young age of 103, and she is a miracle in every regard. One reason of which is that this is her family. This picture was taken in Monastir in 1923. She has one brother who is not in this picture as he was born after this picture was taken. But Rochelle is a miracle for many reasons, one of which is that she is one of the very few monastirlis who survived World War II. Most of her family was exterminated along with the other Jews of Macedonia, but she did survive, and her story is an incredible one. In short, she was saved by the help of an Albanian Muslim family, and we will hear more about Albania later in the program. Now, I grew up with the stories that my grandfather used to tell me about Monastir, and also I have the joy of being able to see Rochelle on a regular basis, which she tells me stories. And one of the stories she told me was about this mezuzah here. If you are not familiar with what a mezuzah is, it is the signpost that Jews put on their doors to show that it is a Jewish family, and it has a special blessing, a prayer inside that keeps us safe inside our homes. And during the war, when Rochelle's family was taken away, a neighbor knew how important this mezuzah was and actually removed and saved the mezuzah in the hopes that one day she would be able to return it to Rochelle's family. And in fact, she was able to give it back to Rochelle years later. And this story has always just so inspired me to know that I can actually hold, and I've touched that sacred mezuzah, and to know that so many non-Jews did help my family during the war. I've taken that information and I have put all of that inspiration into a 2-decade-long career of sharing Ladino music, the music of my family from Monastir, Judeo-Spanish, with audiences around the world. I also consider myself a storyteller, and I've taken these stories. I want people to know about them, and so I do use the stories from my cousin Rochelle and my grandfather to put that all into the music, and one song you will hear later today. Why does this have to do with today? Well, somebody in Macedonia got wind of the fact that I had a connection to Monastir. So about 7 years ago, a random stranger who's now a friend, Blaga Andanov, asked me if he could interview me for a cultural paper in Macedonia. And I said, well, sure, that would be lovely. And one of the questions he asked me, I responded in English and he translated it, was, would I ever perform in Macedonia? And I said, oh my gosh, are you kidding? It's a dream come true. What I would do to perform in Monastir. It would be truly a dream come true. Well, I didn't think anything of it until I started being friended by several people on Facebook who apparently had seen that magazine. And I thought, oh, this is so sweet. You know, on Facebook, you end up being friends with a lot of people, but these friendships turned into more than just Facebook friendships. I have to give a shout out to my friend, Vlado Stoyanov, who is also on this call. Vlado, I hope that you will wave to everybody. Vlado is truly the reason why I am here today, and that is not a joke. He stayed in touch with me over the years to the point where he really was asking me a lot of questions about what it would take for me to come to Monastir. And he really was interested in my background. And fast forward a few years later, I was in fact invited to sing in nearby Bulgaria. And Vlado said, oh, well, you must come to Macedonia. If you're just in Bulgaria over the border, you have to come. And I said, well, you know, how would I make that happen? Well, Vlado arranged the trip. He booked my hotel. He booked a concert that was standing room only. He planned walking tours, meals. The entire trip was completely planned by Vlado, who, you know, I had never met in person. I had only met him on Facebook. And fast forward, I ended up going. And the first place we went, the first place he took me was to the cemetery, the same cemetery that the Rabbi Dien had met with my family about in 1925. So 90 some years later, I was standing in front of that same cemetery with all of these people who have become dear, dear friends of mine. And it was so emotional. I ended up going to the site of a grave that has the name Sarah Aroeste. And I have been researching how I'm related specifically to this Sarah Aroeste, but I want to point out the TV camera there, which is a running theme. I did not book this TV camera. To this day, I'm not quite sure I know who did. I think it was my friend Mima, but the fact that somebody had heard that someone who has a connection to the Aroestes was arriving in Monastir, now known as Bitola, to visit her homeland, a TV camera showed up to capture it. Well, the next stop Vlado took me was through the streets of Monastir, of Bitola, because I really just wanted to feel the energy. And along the way, people opened up their doors and invited me in with coffees and teas to share with me and to invite me and to tell me the stories that their grandparents had bought their house from Jews before the war, and their family was good friends with this family. And all they wanted to do was talk to me about their Jewish experiences and any connection they could have with Jewish culture. They even invited me into their homes to show me the Jewish artifacts that their families had passed down from friends before the war. I was so moved. But of course, the highlight for me on that first visit was to my cousin Rochelle's house. This house is known as the Jewish house. It is on the most popular walking street, Shok Shirok. It is a pedestrian boulevard, and everybody knows this building. It has always had a storefront on the first floor. It is currently an Italian restaurant, but this is my cousin Rochelle's house that her father built and where she grew up in. And it's known as the Jewish house because you can see, I tried to circle, in the ironwork in the balcony are two Magen David, two stars of David. So of course, a TV camera again magically appeared when they heard I was going to visit a relative's house. So here I am actually sitting on the balcony of my own family who lived there before the war. And I can't tell you if any of you have ever had the experience of actually inhabiting the space of your family that perished during the war. It is something. So that night I had my big debut in Bitola. It was a sold out, or the standing room only audience, and of course, more cameras, press conference after. But that night, I had a celebratory meal with all of the people you see around this table. And the reason why I'm showing this is because it didn't occur to me at the time how incredible it was that Vlado and all these people here made my trip possible. Not a single one is Jewish. So for Americans who are watching this, just to think about that for a second, the welcome that I received and the love and, I mean, truly a red carpet that was put out for me, all of these people did it for no reason except the kindness and love of their hearts, that they wanted to show how much they appreciate Jewish culture. It is really hard for me to understand that as an American. And so I came home and I wrote about it. And I wrote an article for Tablet Magazine, which I know many of you are familiar with, because I really wanted people to understand how significant this is. No other country have I ever been in that I've been shown so much love just for the fact of being Jewish. So I wanted to return that love, and I wanted other people to witness it. So the following year, I brought 20 people with me to witness that same love. And here is a tour group that I arranged with my friend and colleague Joshua Bloom, who is also on this call. And we brought a delegation from America, and of course, we stopped at the cemetery. We again visited my cousin Rochelle's house, the Jewish house, but this time we brought a picture of her family, and we had a press conference, again, more cameras, to show that it's not just a Jewish house, but that actual Jews lived in that house. We wanted to have the names. We wanted to have the pictures. We wanted anybody who walked into that building and went to that Italian restaurant to know that these are the Jews who lived in that house. So now everybody who goes sees Rochelle's family photo and the names inside that building. That night, I had another concert, and this time it was sponsored in part by the governments, by the municipality of Bitola, and with the help of the Israeli Foreign Ministry. And I was able to bring my musical partner, Shai Bachar, and together we gave another concert that was just a beautiful experience for me to be able to return and sing. And again, it made news. More cameras, Bitola news. But really what was newsworthy are the people in this picture. Here you see Jews, Christians, Muslims, Macedonians, Israelis, and myself all singing on the rooftops after my concert. And I looked at this picture and the joy and everybody coming together. And I said, oh my gosh, I need to harness this energy. So you see the two arrows there. These are two wonderful Macedonian musicians who I then contacted, and I said, let's do something together. And born was the Monastir Project. Now, this project is an international collaborative project between Israelis and Macedonians and myself to bring these musicians together to research and record songs about Jews and that Jews loved to sing before World War II. We have spent the last year arranging music, again, between Macedonians and Israelis we've gone through archival material through the archives in Israel and in Macedonia. We've had researchers on the ground, volunteers helping us. And we have found such a rich collection of music. Some songs have never been recorded before. They are unique to Monastir. Lyrics from 500 years ago that have never been put to music that we're aware of. Songs that are popular around the Balkans, but are unique lyrics just for Monastir. And we wanted to celebrate the life of this community by bringing musicians and volunteers together. So how are we doing this project? Well, again, TV cameras. I wanted to launch the project in March of this year to coincide with the anniversary of the deportation of the Jewish community, which every year Israel and Macedonia organize a beautiful program, which we're going to hear about soon. Unfortunately, Corona happened and the Israeli delegation was not able to join. So I said to my music partner, Shai, should we still go ahead? And we decided yes, because we had so many people who had volunteered to help us, and we decided to represent our Macedonian and Israeli friends by going. And here you see me with the mayor of Bitola, Natasha Petrovska. And I was asked, why did I want to launch this project, this music project, especially around the anniversary of the deportation? And so much of the project actually has to do with political dialogue, really understanding the history and the culture around what happened during World War II. So I didn't want to pass up the opportunity to have those conversations. So here I am. I had the honor of presenting for an Albanian educational group we're going to learn about. And in the middle is Talat Jafari, who is the president of the parliament of North Macedonia. And I got to tell him my story. So just for those of you who aren't familiar with me, that's okay, because 7 or 8 years ago, no one in Macedonia had heard of me. And if you think one person can't make a difference, I am sitting here now as someone who has met with the president of the parliament of North Macedonia to explain my family story and to present my project. It is possible to make a real difference. And so before I launched the recording project, of course, I had to walk the streets to get some inspiration. And on the top, you see my cousin Rochelle with the arrow. This is Rochelle before the war, walking those cobblestone streets of Monastir with her friends and family. And as we know, Rochelle is the only one who survived. And there I am on that same street just in March, just 9 months ago. There I am. So where does this project stand now? Well, we went and we started recording. This beautiful singer from Macedonia, Helena Susha, her mother Maja is a speaker on this panel in just a few minutes. Helena is one of the few Jews who lives in Monastir, in Macedonia, North Macedonia. She is an 18-year-old opera singer, and of course we wanted to show the next generation, so she is included on this project. Those are the two people you saw me dancing with on the rooftops. They have recorded on the project. I had the honor of working with a kindergarten school in Bitola. This is the Esrea Mara kindergarten class. The reason why we included them is such a beautiful story. The theme song, their anthem of their school is a song for Esrea Mara, who was a Jewish partisan who died at the age of 22 in 1944 fighting the war. And these children growing up today in Macedonia sing a song as their school anthem to Esrea Mara, which I just find unbelievable. And we wanted to capture them in song. Then, of course, Corona did get bad, and the US called me home and Shai had to return to Israel. And we thought, how are we going to continue this project? We're so close to reaching our goals. And we have enlisted an amazing group of musicians to continue recording in their own studios in Israel. This is actually a beautiful Israeli guitar player recording from Berlin, which the irony there, I hope is not lost on many of you. And then the great Yoram Gaon, for people who know Yoram Gaon, he is a beautiful, beautiful addition to our project. He sings a gorgeous song. Here I am recording in my own home studio in Massachusetts, and I wanted to bring it back to my cousin Rochelle. This story that I just outlined of why I'm doing what I'm doing really comes back to joy. I hope you can see all of the smiles in this. This picture was taken in February, right before my last trip to Macedonia. And we hear so many sad stories about Monastir, and it is so important to know that history and to know those stories. But the point of my project, of the Monastir Project, and a lot of the projects that we'll hear about today are really about joy. We need to celebrate this life. We need to celebrate this culture, this history, these people. And I know how to do that through music, by bringing people together through song and through cultural dialogue and political dialogue. And I hope that, again, as just one person, I'm doing this by bringing all these people together, but I can't do it alone, because I'm going to segue now to our incredible speakers who have become allies and colleagues and friends of mine. And they are really the VIPs, the ones who are on the ground every day working to bring this joy to more people. So it is my great honor to start with Ambassador Dan Oryan. Dan is the Israeli ambassador to North Macedonia, and he is the director of the Balkan countries region. Ambassador Oryan has initiated many cultural and economic partnerships between Israel and North Macedonia, including the Bitola, which he will, I hope, talk about, and this beautiful new menorah project, and so many other projects that he will now share with us. He's also, I should say, a former professional gymnast and a children's book author. He has a brand new book in Ladino that has just been published, and he is an all-around terrific, terrific ally. So, Ambassador, you can unmute yourself.
Not you.
Resistance. Once you have insulin resistance, fat becomes difficult to lose weight.
One more time, Ambassador. Yes. Okay. Great.
Okay. Wow. An amazing opening, Sarah, really. And actually, it's a pleasure to be here with you today. In the last 6 years, I've been the Israeli non-resident ambassador. I'm not sure you're familiar with this expression, non-resident ambassador. Some countries don't have money to have embassies everywhere. And as you know, we have relations with so many countries. So what we are doing here actually is, in some of the places we don't have an embassy. That's the case in North Macedonia. And what I'm trying to do is to be still a matchmaker or a bridge builder, but with no embassy, actually no special embassy. And of course, very little budget, and actually with no local manpower that I can pay to. So actually what we do is we create coalitions. And I'm going to tell you just a few things about what we do in general in the relation between Israel and Macedonia. And then I'll go into the main issue. And at the end of my short talk, we watch together a short video about last year's March of the Living and some of the events around it. I'm sure that the next speakers will give you a lot more about many, many other things. I was thinking, because there's so many things have happened in the last 6 years between the countries. So I chose just a few hooks to tell you about. I would start by telling you that when I arrived 6 years ago to Macedonia, just before that, almost everybody I spoke to was telling me that there's a cemetery in terrible shape. in a city called Bitola, 2.5 hours from the main city, from the capital, from Skopje. And I must visit it and do something. So this was maybe the beginning of what we see today. I came there, it was really in a bad situation. Actually, it was the dumping place of garbage for the city. And what we were trying to do in the last few years is to change it into something totally different. And the reason, you heard Sarah's personal story, but these 7,144 Jews that were lost from Macedonia during the Holocaust were actually killed, and we have some kind of responsibility because there's actually no one to tell the story. So what we're trying to do is to tell this story in different ways. Some of them are very creative, I think, and others are, you know, the usual stuff that you see in other places, books, exhibitions, and other things. I'll get back to that. But the effort, we're talking about a country which is very, very positive to Israel. We have very good relations. We had prime ministers coming during these 6 years from Macedonia to Israel. We had presidents coming. We had a lot of delegations. But I think if I'm looking at what are the main things that we're trying to do, I would go into starting by saying that the effort is to bring as much as possible the special things about Israel that we can show them. And this is why there are a few topics where we have special emphasis. We have very strong partnership in health. We have very strong partnership in innovation. We have special partnerships in things connected to education, to people with special needs. And of course, we try to bring everything that we can in from the culture world. I'm a big believer in partnerships in culture. And what happened to Sarah actually happened to many of the other artists that came. If you look at the two leading Israeli theaters, Habima and Akamari, which came to perform an amazing performance in the whole Balkans, when they came back home, they made a special performance and all the money was going for the cleaning of the old cemetery in Bitola. Many of the artists will be also joining us very, very soon when we start this menorah project we'll talk about in a few minutes, and you will hear about it more. So the idea is to look for very special things that we can do in order to tell the old story, but bring today's Israel. Israel, which is very innovative, which is very creative, which has a lot of places where our special agendas are very relevant for Macedonia. So if we take the leading people in innovation to Israel and have them in courses for how to create an accelerator or how to lead an accelerator in innovation, so this is part of that. And then afterwards, when we do a big hackathon, big competition of innovation, we have these people leading it, people who studied in Israel, who have been for a short period in Israel, and now are coming back to take part. So this is some kind of coalition. But the coalition for cleaning the old Jewish cemetery started. We saw that today's mayor of Bitola, we had the former mayor, which signed together with us and with ARHAM. I suppose Maria Gera's Dochevska, Mima, is with us here. So she was leading this organization that signed together with us and started the work there of cleaning the old cemetery. Then afterwards, we had been joined by the Jewish community, by the Fund of Holocaust, and many other partners. And during these years, the idea is not just to clean. Cleaning a cemetery is something that is done in many places. But to make it into a center where people are coming, watching, taking part, and each one is doing something relevant for that. So if we brought a group of youngsters called Carmelim to perform all over the country, they had 15 performances of dancing and singing. They came to the cemetery, they worked there. Afterwards, we had a flash mob. If you look for that, you can find a flash mob with me in Bitola. When we brought people which are expert in health, they came to Bitola. They of course visited the cemetery, and afterwards they went to see what is needed in the hospitals in the region. And we are trying to build partnership there. By the way, the hospital today, the Day Hospital, is named after a relative of Shelly, Levy-Drummer, which we'll be speaking later. This is also not by accident. It's all part of the same big project where we are trying to bring the past and connect it to the relevant things. So we brought many different things, starting from companies and people which are really inspirational. This was part of the idea of bringing people who can really make a difference. So just if to name a few names, that some of them I'm sure you know, someone like Tal Brody, which is the famous basketball player. So we brought him there as the last Maccabi player, famous Maccabi, to light a candle together with the Prime Minister of Macedonia. And after we lit a candle together, he put it on the Facebook of the government, just to show you as an example. And his film about basketball was shown as part of the Week of Israeli Films, which was already the 5th Week of Israeli Films that we had in Macedonia. So trying to be relevant to what they need and connect it to what is important for Israel and to our past. This is actually the big mission, if I have to put it into like a short frame of how we work there. So we brought people from innovation like Dana Gavish and Michael Mizrahi, that are leading figures in Israel in innovation. We brought Gidi Markamir, which you maybe know, he's the head of Birthright, to assist the Macedonians, which have similar problems, to create their own birthright. We brought people that are dealing with a circular economy. We brought leading people in the field of health and many, many, many others. And of course, a lot of delegations, starting from delegations of second and third generation of people from the region, all the way to experts to work and teach how to clean a cemetery, how to document it. So experts came from Israel for all those things. And of course, you mentioned the hackathon we had, the Bitola. So we had a huge event, which everybody was telling me before, why are you going into that? I mean, a hackathon on Jewish history, on cemetery? What are you talking about? It became the biggest hackathon ever in Macedonia. 120 youngsters, non-Jews, coming specially to Bitola to work with us. For 30 hours, they sat and worked on projects. They stopped only for 2 hours to march with us in this March of the Living. And for 3 years, we marched. Every year, we had the Deputy Minister of Defense coming from Israel. The second year, the third year, we already had a minister. We had Minister Elkin, which is the Minister of Jerusalem. And together with him, we also opened the path of Jerusalem at the entrance to the cemetery. The cemetery story is quite amazing. I mean, we thought at the beginning that there are just a few stones that could be of interest for us. But after a while, after working there, bringing volunteers from Germany and from other places, and of course Macedonians, I think today there are more than 4,000 tombstones that were cleaned. And on more than 1,000, you have Hebrew letters. There's a huge work done. Dr. Drummer, which you will hear afterwards, is leading the effort actually to tell the story by looking at those texts, by making sure that researchers will take them, will put them on later also on the cloud, that everybody could use them and to do research on them. One of the things, amazing thing that is going to happen, I hope, is a center in Bar-Ilan University dealing with these tombstones. So this is another one. But on the other side, with the other agendas of Israel, we brought people with special needs. They sang in all the events. Like we had the march, and then we had songs, and in all these performances, we had people with special needs as part of the special effort to show different faces of Israel. We had Ofra Cohen, which brings people with special needs, combining them into this effort. She's doing it here in Israel, and at that time, she assisted us in doing it there. And we try on the other side to make an effort to continue and make special things relevant for moving forward this project. So I mentioned the Bitola, and I mentioned an exhibition that we created. We started a competition actually of photography. Whoever was there could participate. And at the end, we had an amazing exhibition in the Foreign Ministry. I think it's the only small town that got 3 months of exhibition in the Foreign Ministry. Actually, no one got even 1 month. So it was quite amazing to see the pictures from Bitola 2019 for 3 months in the ministry. And of course, we found and succeeded to bring the last Jewish boy that was born just before the deportation, Mati Greenberg. He created a sundial. We succeeded to find the financing for that, but it's quite amazing. It's 9 meters, and really soon it will be in the right place. on the cemetery in the right special place that was made for it. So when you look at these, just as a few examples, I think it gives you an idea of the kind of things they're trying to do. Of course, when I speak at delegations, it's from graduates of the Mandel School of Leadership in Jerusalem, all the way, as I said, to people with special needs, but also Bnei Akiva, youth organizations, lots of researchers from Bar Ilan, from other universities, and many, many, many others. And this year, as you know, could not march, and many of the other plans that we had to be changed or even canceled. So we were looking for a special way still this year also to do something special. And therefore we were looking for a special day where everybody will be doing something to remember the Jews. As we said, to save them we cannot, but we can do something to share the story. Therefore, we started a new project. I came with the idea of why not to use the 8th candle of Hanukkah, lighting the 8th candle to light the memory of the Jews of Macedonia. And since we're talking about 7,144 Jews that were murdered, why not get the 8th candle, which will give us, if we have 1,000 menorahs or Chanukiot, we will have lights in Macedonia. So I see here more than around 200 people. That means another 200 menorahs that are joining our project, at least I hope. And this is, of course, what we expect. We have amazing, amazing support. The president of Macedonia, of North Macedonia, will be lighting a candle. Bougie Herzog from the Israeli side, from the Jewish Agency, will be lighting one at the same time on that day. And many, many people will be part of that. 1,000 menorahs are made these days. I think Maja Susha is with us here, and she's in charge of the Macedonian side of creating 1,000 such menorahs. Just this morning, I was visiting together with Dr. Levy-Drummer in Jerusalem, an institution that has so many people with special needs, which are going to light as well. And this is also in this same framework of telling that we are trying to get as many as possible people to notice, to tell the story. And we will have many mayors, many heads of states, and I hope many ambassadors. All the Israeli ambassadors will get this information, and I hope will join us. All the people from the Jewish Agency hopefully will join us, and many, many others. So it's up to you, of course, to widen this chain of light to tell the story. I can tell you that my grandmother, just before we finish with our little YouTube of the March of the Living of last year, I can tell you that my grandmother, Dvora, wanted me to be a rabbi. As you can see, it happened. And therefore, I wanted, by the way, to be a world champion in gymnastics. It also didn't happen, as you can see. And therefore, I'm very happy that if she's watching us from somewhere up there, I'm sure she's very happy, not just for the cleaning of the cemetery, but so many people care about the Jewish past and are ready not just to light a candle, but to do much more. And what happened to Sarah really happened to quite a few of the leading figures of Israel after they came to North Macedonia. And this is really, really amazing. And I think that one of the things that I really feel that was accomplished here is this combination of really good people. Sarah mentioned this feeling of love towards Macedonia. I think it's some kind of triangle. It's no doubt it's this special story, but it's the Jews from Macedonia around the world. It's Macedonia and it's Israel. And this triangle, I think, is very, very powerful. And we have succeeded to do quite a lot. And this is, just the beginning. So I really hope to join forces with you and to have you joining us for the effort to tell the story, because, nobody else will tell it. So help us tell the story. And I love this music project of Sarah Aroeste. I hope I'll be able to assist with some amazing musicians from the Israeli side. So thank you very much. Let's have this little short video of showing some elements of what we had last year in the March of the Living.
כולנו רקמה אנושית אחת חיה, ואם אחד מאיתנו הולך מעימנו, משהו מת בנו, משהו נשאר איתו. אם נדע איך להרגיע את האיבה, אם רק נדע, אם נדע להשכיב את עצמנו, על אף עלבוננו לומר סליחה, אם נדע להתחיל מההתחלה, כי כולנו, כן כולנו, כולנו רקמה אנושית אחת חיה, ואם אחד מאיתנו הולך מעימנו, משהו מת בנו, משהו נשאר איתו, כי כולנו, כן כולנו, כולנו רקמה אנושית אחת חיה, ואם אחד מאיתנו הולך מעימנו, משהו מת בנו, משהו נשאר איתו. Thank you.
Sarah, if I may just so many others, and I just saw that Carrie Bristol or Carrie Hart is with us, amazing photographer and journalist, which actually, if you saw the dancing people in the before that, she was one of them. I don't know if you recognized her. And to say thank you for Shlomi Amsalem, the amazing photographer who made this YouTube. And I didn't mention many of the other partners, but there's so many and they're so committed. And I really want to hope that for the next ambassadors of Israel to the Republic of Macedonia, there will be such partners, because you can really reach the sky with such partners. So thank you, all of you.
Thank you, Ambassador, for being with us. And I do want to say that I will be providing information after this meeting on how to light that 8th candle and contribute it to a large website that will show people around the world lighting candles for the Jews of Macedonia. So I hope that you will all participate.
We expect your partnership.
Okay, so the next speaker is someone with star wattage smile that she walks into a room and makes everyone just filled with joy. Dr. Rachel Shelly Levy-Drummer is the academic secretary at Bar-Ilan University. She's also the director of Macedonia Initiatives, a very important NGO that oversees the restoration of the Jewish cemetery that we've been talking about in Bitola, and other cultural and academic initiatives that bring together Macedonia and Israel. She is truly the heart and connection between Macedonia and Israel. Her own story will amaze you, and what she has done with it will inspire you. My dear friend Shelly.
Sarah, thanks so much for organizing, for your great efforts to do everything that you are doing and making us so exciting about this project and all what's happening around. Mr. Ambassador, thank you for your warm words. And so, hello everybody. I'm very happy that we have so big group here with us. And okay, I'll start with a presentation. So I'm sharing it. Okay. So as Sarah asked me to start with the story of my story, you know, every history has every historical story has a lot of parts and aspects. So this is my small aspect of this story. So I was born in Macedonia. As you see here on the right, this is me, the small kid. It is about 1962. This is my family. Small and very warm family. This is my grandfather, Dr. Chaim Abravanel, and his wife, my mother, that is the daughter, and my father and uncle. There are 6 people on this picture, but there are 120 missing. And all these 120 are the all family members that were killed in the Holocaust, actually in Treblinka. So some pictures of this family. So this is the Abravanel family from the Pirot, a city, small city on the south of Serbia, very close to Macedonia. This is my grandfather. And as you see in the Abravanel family, there were 9 brothers. And out of all these people that you see on this picture, that was taken somewhere in the 1930s, the only remain alive after the Holocaust are those that are circled with white. So most of them, this couple and this one actually survived because they moved to Pittsburgh before the war, and these are their children. So if somebody here knows the Abravanel fairs from Pittsburgh, that's that family. And all others, including all the kids and women and all my grandparents, everybody was sent to Treblinka and just burned there in that camp. So this is part of the 120 missing people in my family. This is my grandmother's family. There were also 8 brothers, but I have any idea or any information about them. This is the only pictures that I have. And this is my father's family. They are Levy, a family from Bitola or Monastir. This is my father. The only survivors from this family are my father and his brother. Since my uncle didn't have children and I'm the only one daughter of my father, so I am the only descendant of all these families that we saw till now. So this is another part. All of them were killed in Treblinka, and I have any information about bigger family or the other family, Levy family, that I had there. And this is my father. Actually, he survived because he was a student in Sofia. And here you see this Magen David, the yellow star that he was wearing during the war, you know, as all Jews were. So that's me as a small kid in Macedonia. When I was 7, on July 26, 1963, there was an earthquake in the capital of Macedonia, in Skopje. And there were, on this earthquake, there were killed about 1,400 people. And between them, this is how it looked after the earthquake. It was at 5:17 in the morning. So this is the railway station that is still now, it's a place to remember the earthquake. And on this earthquake, my parents and the brother of my mother were killed. I was in Bitola with my grandparents. It was during the summer vacation, so I survived. And actually, of this very small family that I had, remained only the 3 of us. And then when I was immediately after that, my parents are buried in Israel, and I moved to Israel with my grandparents, where I grew up. This is my family now. My kids are much, much bigger, but they are students now, but this is my family nowadays, so I'm happy. This history made me to start looking about the Holocaust, about the vanished family, about the family that I was supposed to have and didn't have. When my kids were in high school, I traveled with them to Poland and insisted them to go to the stone in Treblinka of Macedonia and do the ceremony, and I was telling all the friends and the group of kids about the history of the Macedonian Jews. Actually, nobody knows or nobody knew in Israel, not about Macedonia and not about the community of Jewish community of Macedonia, because nobody remained. Actually, from this community, as you know, remained only 150 people. So it is a really vanished community, vanished not just physical, but also from our memory, from our national memory. And that's what made me to start looking and trying to tell the story. I'll not, as Sarah said, I'm not going to talk about the history, but this is where I was join my feelings to the project. So this is my grandfather. This picture was taken on 1958. As you see him, this is the ceremony on 11th of March. He's telling here the kids of Bitola the history of the vanished Jewish community. My grandfather was, after the war, the only Jewish family living in Bitola. He was the manager of the hospital there, and he was the only one family in Bitola. After 1,000 years, there was in Bitola very large community. So he took upon himself to tell the story. And everything was stopped when the earthquake happened in Skopje, and we left Bitola. And since then, there are no Jews living in Bitola. There is no one Jewish family in Bitola. On 2009, we visited the same place. As you see this monument, this is the same place in Bitola with my family. On this journey to Macedonia, we visited the cemetery, and that's how it looked like. The cemetery is this mountain. it was, as the ambassador told, in terrible situation. It was really a place of garbage. The only thing that was really very, very meaningful was the restorated gate. And as you see that on this gate, what's written is that the cemetery, they started burying there on 1497, immediately after the Spanish expulsion, until actually the Holocaust. And that's what this is the picture of 2009. As you can see here, it is in a really terrible shape. And I had a dream together with Mima that is here with us, and she will speak a little bit later. So this is Mima on this picture. And we started dreaming about renewing the cemetery as a symbol of the Jewish community, of the Venice Jewish community, and as something, opening the story, telling the story of the Jewish community through this cemetery. You know, sometimes you dream and then it suddenly becomes real. And that's what happened to us when this ambassador, Oryan, that was talking just before me, became ambassador, and he took it upon himself to work this project, to initiate the idea and to move it forward. So here is the first ceremony, the signing of the agreement of restoration of the cemetery. This was signed on 2015, December 2015. And there are very, very, a lot of very meaningful people on this picture. And as you see on this coalition, in this coalition, we have the Minister of Investment of Macedonia and the Minister of Culture that are now not on position. We have the other people on this position, but all these functions are still part of this coalition. And also the Prime Minister of Macedonia, when he visited Israel, he was talking with the Israeli Prime Minister, with Bibi Netanyahu, about the project. It means that this is really an important part of the bridge between Israel and Macedonia. And we had a lot, as the ambassador mentioned, we had a lot of delegations and a lot of activities. And also in Bailan, we had 2 conferences about the Bitola project. And this is one very meaningful delegation that here we have Yael Una, that initiated afterwards the group of the descendants of the Monastir community here in Israel, and there is a very big and large group of people that joined the rebuilding nowadays this new community of the 2nd and 3rd generation of the Monastir and of the whole Macedonia group here in Israel. So here you see how it started, how everything started, how they started cleaning the gravestones, and it was very exciting moments, uncovering and finding Hebrew letters that were under this soil, and everybody was so really very, very big excitement of Israeli people and others that to read this Hebrew letters that are telling the story of this vanished community, that are telling the personal stories of people that are not with us anymore for a lot of years. Actually, the cemetery became the open book telling the story of this community, the open book for this community. And you see other stones that were art meanings found there. And these are various delegations. We have here academic delegations and delegations of youngsters and a priest from Germany that is bringing delegation of youngsters from Germany that are working on this cemetery. So it's becoming somehow worldwide project, not only for us, for our people that are originally from Macedonia, but somehow it touches a lot of people all over the world, and of course, the Macedonians. So here we see the third March of Living, and another conference in Oryan University that took place. It was 2 years ago. Happened 2 years ago. We had there about 300 participants of people not only from Macedonia. A lot of people became interested. A lot of people started hearing about Monastir, about Bitola, about Macedonia, and it is becoming really amazing, a vanished community that is reviving. And this is the picture of the Bitalon, of the competition of innovation that the ambassador Dan Oryan was telling. And this is the delegation that Sarah mentioned. I came especially to meet them from Israel. It was big excitement. And the building that Sarah was telling. So this is the situation, how the cemetery looks like nowadays. And as you can see, about all this area is the area of the cemetery. About 30% or a little bit more is cleaned and uncovered. And we hope very much with your support and the support of many other peoples around the world, and of course, the families from Monastir, to succeed and clean the whole area and make it a place for visiting, a park of living, make it a place that will invite everybody and call everybody, and became a meaningful place in Bitola for Macedonian, Israelis, and people from all over the world, telling the history of this 1,000-year vanished community. And I would like, just before finishing, to invite everybody to the 1,000 Menorah Project to light with us on the 17th of December of this Hanukkah, to light with us the Hanukkah, the 8 candles of Hanukkah, share the lights, and let us together remember the 7,144 Jews from Macedonia that just vanished one day on 1943. So I would like just to finish with a very short a movie of mass singing that we had 2 years ago on the cemetery, and some movie that is telling the story of the reviving and renewing project of Bitola. So just a minute. Sorry, just a minute. Do you hear it? You don't hear. Just a minute. Just a minute.
While Dr. Levy-Drummer is preparing that, I will again, in a follow-up email after today's program, I will give you all information on how to participate in the cemetery project. If you'd like to make a donation, I will send you that information. Along the way, I've also, oh.
Okay, now we'll hear it.
Okay. Thank you, Shelly.
Sorry. So thank you very much. And I will be very happy to invite everybody to visit Bitola, to be part of this project, and to help us realize this dream together with you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Shelly. So as you've just heard, Shelly currently lives in Israel, and she is a major driving force behind the cemetery project. But we do have a wonderful partner who is on the ground in Macedonia. Maria Gera Dochevska, excuse me, is from Bitola, and she is the founder of ARHAM, Architecture and Ambiance, which is an NGO based in Macedonia that oversees the volunteer management of the Jewish Memorial Park. She is the liaison for many cooperative projects between Macedonia and Israel, and she is not Jewish, and it was important, especially putting together this panel, that you see what it is like for Macedonians on the ground to be so involved professionally and personally in these Jewish projects. She also has an amazing story that connects to Shelly as well. So I'm now going to invite Mima to speak. I know she was having some sound problems before. Mima, are you there? Yes, now I can.
Okay. I will say good evening because it is night here. to everybody, to my friends, to some people I already know. First of all, to Sarah. Thank you, Sarah. It's a great initiative and one good thing from COVID. Otherwise, we would not do such a conference. I have to first thank to Ambassador Dan Oryan and my friends, Dr. Shelly Levy-Drummer, for all of this adventure. It was Shelly who invited me to meet the ambassador, and for me, instead of saying to help me in my business, I said help me. We never knew that it will be a really big project. There was a great wishing. We are friends for all our lives, my mother, and we thought that we should do something that we might revive. It turned into a Bitola project, as he called it, a project that is the objective of this project is to bring people to remember, to see, and to connect with the people here. Because the next, regardless if you are in the States or Macedonia, if you are 3 or 4 generations later, the story of the life will go away, and all the benefits of the friendships between people of religion and culture and even language to build some new bridges. And that is the all of the people used to your on your picture, Sarah, from Bitola, they all have a personal story of somebody, family, that are telling them about the past, about who were the which unity. There's so many personal stories and songs and thanks to our grandfathers, grandmothers, somebody is telling you when you're growing up, and you will share it if you have a personal touch. So Shelly invited you to come to Bitola. I'm inviting you also to see not that one house, but many of them, to see the market, to hear the stories that our guides, and they're all volunteers, gives, to tell you about who and why are they important to us. If there was no such a story, I knew. Yes, I would know Shelly, but not you, and not so many other exquisite people that I met during the last 5 years. Only in 2016, we had at the cemetery more than 7,000 visitors.
Wow.
And I have guided and hosted, I don't know, hundreds of families. We had reunions here. We had people, and after this COVID crisis, for sure, we shall have again people that are coming from different sides from the world to meet each other at the streets of their grandfathers or grandmothers.
Mhm.
They're all monastirlis, regardless if they're Jewish or not, and they're welcome. You are our ambassadors in the world.
Oh, thank you, Mima. Your work is incredible, and you have such a wonderful team. Really, everyone who's listening, she is telling the truth. You come and visit. She will make
You,
sure it is a wonderful, a wonderful visit, a meaningful one. Thank you. And she is just but one example
on the
of
name
the.
of everybody from Bitola who's here, I'm thanking all of you for having this nice meeting.
She is but one citizen in Bitola who really has just opened up her arms to visitors to learn about our history and our culture. So thank you. Our last featured speaker today is Maja Susha. Again, she was having some sound problems, so I hope that she has solved them. Before she
Yes.
speaks, oh, great, I hear you. I just want to, I can't toast you. Maja is also in Macedonia right now. She's in Skopje, and it's too early here to give a toast, but in honor of all of my, my Macedonian friends, I have been cooking this morning. I made masadikus, which Jewish families from Monastir know that this is a delicacy, a special treat. And everyone who is on this call will get a little video tutorial on how to make them, but I'm eating them with you in spirit. Maja is a Jewish-born woman from Skopje, and I invited her to speak because she has her hand in all of the major efforts regarding Holocaust education today. And as someone who grew up Jewish in Macedonia, I wanted you all to hear her perspective. So thank you so much, Maja, for coming.
So thank you for inviting me to this amazing program. I want to say shalom from Macedonia to all of you. Actually from Skopje. I'm a member of the Jewish community. I have 2 kids. And somehow everything started for me in this field in 2011 when the Holocaust Museum opened the gates for the visitors. I was part of the research department team. I guided a lot of VIPs like presidents, ambassadors, ministers, government officials. But somehow the most important and challenging for me were the students and the kids that were coming in the museum. Also, I lead one project, Holocaust Through the Lens of the Children's Eyes, supported by the Ministry of Education. And somehow the Holocaust education became my mission and something that I wanted to dedicate myself. So the idea was to open one educational department, which I didn't succeed in the Holocaust Museum. But at the end, today we have a Holocaust education department, but within the Ministry of Education, which means it's the first state Holocaust education department supported and within the Ministry of Education, actually in the Institute for the Cultural and Spiritual Heritage of the Albanians. I have to mention the biggest achievement was the collaboration of the Ministry of Education and Yad Vashem. Somehow everything started with that step. I have to mention my good friend and colleague, Dr. Skender Asani, who helped me to achieve my goal, and he was the biggest supporter in my mission to open a Holocaust educational department. Everything, of course, he invited me to lead the department, and we signed a memorandum of cooperation with Yad Vashem. Actually, the Minister of Education signed a memorandum of cooperation, and we made the first official state-supported Holocaust webinar with Yad Vashem this year. And we made a strategy for Holocaust education for the Republic of North Macedonia. And we made a lot of books, and also we promoted like several books from survivors from Macedonia. I would say that we have here Shelly Drummer, and we have here Sarah Aroeste, whose actually Jewish roots are from Macedonia. My Jewish roots are not from Macedonia. Actually, they are from Sarajevo, Bosnia and Herzegovina, but my mother is born here and I'm born here. So I consider myself as a Macedonian Jew, and also my kids. I would like also to say a few words about our collaboration with the State of Israel and directly with the Ambassador Dan Oryan, and of course with Shelly Drummer, who are our soul with our project in Israel and here. So without their support, saying that did a lot of things this project like the mother and the Israeli Film Festival that will be open next month. So many things are happening, and there is a lot of work to do also in the future. So I want to say that you have a great partner here. Mima is in Bitola. I'm here in Skopje to support all the ideas and the project that we have together. So that will be from my side for now. And I hope that this will be also opportunity for our next Zoom meeting, because this is somehow for me not enough. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mima and Maja, for speaking with us from Macedonia. So I hope that you guys can still hear me. Give me a thumbs up. Okay, great, because I just hooked in some audio. I have a microphone now because I am going to premiere a song before we have one last person to introduce before our Q&A. But I wanted to follow Maja because the work that she's doing in education is so critical. And of course, the work that I try to do in my music is also to educate. And I wrote a song for my Monastir project. Maya's daughter, Helena, participates in the project, among others. And I wrote this song with the memories that my grandfather passed down to me from Monastir and my cousin Rochelle. And I wanted to share it with you. Nobody has heard this song yet. It will be on our Monastir Project album, but only my Israeli partner, Shai Bachar, has heard it. So this truly is a premiere. The English translation goes like this. Monastir, we do not forget you. Your children honor you. We breathe your smells, waiting to return We hold on to your voices, waiting to return. Monastir, bring me home, where the dusty streets call to me, the stars on the walls speak to me, and the memories sing to me. I see you walking in the courtyard, laughing with cousins and friends, eating taralikus, and always standing tall, playing little games and always standing tall. Your spirit is pure joy. Even flowers laugh with you, tickling us with stories. All the honor to you. Cherishing the moments, all the honor to you. Across my mind, I see a fez, a crochet, a mezuzah, kindness, knowledge, and tzedakah, a tableau of mixed colors that is you, Monastir. Okay. Monastir nutul vidamus, tus criaturas te honoran, respiramos tus colores, aspirando tornar, guardamos tus voces, aspirando tornar. Monastir, tráeme a casa, donde las calles me llaman, las estrellas me hablan, las memorias me cantan. Te veo caminar en el cortillo, riendo con primos y amigos, comiendo taralicos y siempre tan alto, jugando chiquitos y siempre tan alto. Monastir, tráeme a casa, donde las calles me llaman, las estrellas me hablan, las memorias me cantan, las memorias me cantan. Tu alma es por alegría, mismo las flores ríen contigo, cusqueándonos con cuentos, con la cabot para ti, apreciando los momentos, con la cabot para ti. In mitten veio nefes, crochet, una mezuzah, buena sabiduría y tzedakah, un tablo de mis clanazos, tu monastir. Monastir, tráeme a casa, donde las calles me llaman, las estrellas me hablan, las memorias me cantan, las memorias me cantan. I hope you enjoyed that. Me, Monastir. And one of the best people to end this program with is someone who has shown so much love and appreciation for the Jewish community. My dear friend, Zoran Georgiev, who has spent his entire life in Bitola. His passion is researching the history of the city and the life of Jewish families in particular, and where they lived before World War II. He is also the creator of the mobile app on your phones, Bitola Tour Guide, which highlights a Jewish walking tour of Bitola. And I know from all of the emails I got before this program that many of you are interested in connecting to your roots and researching where your family comes from. Zoran is the man. So I'm going to let him speak and tell you a little bit about his research, and then we're going to open it up to questions and answers. And I will be providing everyone with contact information for Zoran, so you can contact him offline with some of your potential research questions. Okay, Zoran. Well, while we wait for him, I will open it up to questions and answers. I know that we have many. So I am going to start with Barry Elias. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. Go ahead, Barry.
So we wanted to know if anybody has cataloged the names from the tombstones in this cemetery that you speak of.
Shelly, do you want to answer that?
Yeah. So meanwhile, the gravestones we are going to start a research on hopefully this year on these gravestones. We have about half of the gravestones we have inscriptions, but we're working on preparing the list.
Thank you. Please share it with us when you do so we can find his great-great-grandparents who are probably buried there.
Which family? Which is the family?
I think it might be Halevi.
Okay. I know, since I'm Levy also, so first of all, maybe we are probably were some relatives, yeah. But
you're probably my cousin also.
Probably. But yes, there are some. I can try and find some and send you.
Thank you.
If others have questions, if you could please raise your hand, it will be easier for me to locate you and to see your question. I did receive a few questions ahead of time. I'll go ahead and read some of them. For this question is for Shelly. In the past, there was talk of a Sephardic Jewish cultural center being built in the Bitola area to exhibit objects of historical value to the Jews who lived in that area. What is the latest on that? That was from Carrie Hart.
Then maybe.
Dan, do you want to?
Okay. Yes, just one second. Okay. Do you hear me now?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. As far as I know, there were no such plans. There is a big plan to have a Park of the Living, which will include many elements We have started that. I really hope that there will be a continuation. Right now, we're quite on a halt on this issue. There's a lot of interest from many partners, but it seems that on the Macedonian side there were partners that were less interested in such a thing to happen. Of course, there is the museum, the Holocaust Museum, and there is a lot of exhibits there. Hopefully, if there will be a center in Bar-Ilan University, we'll have some of the exhibits there. And hopefully in the future, there will be such a center. Right now, as far as I know, in the city planning, there's no such plan for such a museum. Our vision was to have something special in Bitola because we think that a community that was totally gone, which was so special between two world wars, it was so special, Zionistic, and so special in the Jewish life that it had. And of course, before that, we think it should have some special kind of, center or museum. But unfortunately, today, I don't see it happening. Sorry.
Any other questions? I've seen in the chat a lot of people are interested in forming groups and understanding where they can do more research. I can provide some of the information, and unfortunately our friend Oryan, it looks like, is not able to join us right now, but he is the person on the ground in Bitola who has done a lot of the research on where Jewish families have lived, and he is very open to having people contact him for further research. So I will provide that information. Has the Monastir Project encountered any anti-Semitism in Macedonia or elsewhere? If that is towards me, I can say absolutely not, just the opposite. The number of people who have wanted to participate both as musicians and as volunteers is just staggering. We have at least 50 people, if not more, whose hands have been directly involved in this project. We have enough material that we hope to do a volume 2. And just to be clear, I want everyone to know that I do not work for a university or an organization behind me. It is really just me organizing this project with all these wonderful people from around the world, and we have a lot more to do. We have big plans, especially when COVID ends. We'd like to bring all the musicians physically together to be able to perform the music together that we've had to, by necessity, record separately. But the next step of the project is to actually bring us together and to travel to different music festivals and to share these stories through music and collaboration. So we do need help. I will also be providing information on how you can support these endeavors. We also want to try again for next March, if COVID is over, to launch some of this music again for the anniversary of the deportation. And we want to do some more documentary work as well around the project to show the cooperation. So this is an ongoing project that we definitely can use more hands, more help, and so luckily we have not encountered any anti-Semitism around it yet.
Maybe
Yes, Dan.
worthwhile saying that in general there's no anti-Semitism in Macedonia, almost none. In the whole 6 years I was the Israeli non-resident ambassador, I haven't tackled not even one such incident. So I can say that this is not the situation in other countries, not even in the region. This is very dear to us and important, and this is something that should be said. And I think also that the project has brought many more people, not just Jews from around the world, but also locals, to learn more about their history and to feel proud about the fact that today Macedonia returned property, even though there are needs for corrections, that they have Holocaust Museum, which is quite amazing. Of course, unfortunately, closed and not used as much as needed, and that so many important things are done there, that we have partnership with the government, with the heads of state, that they are marching with us, and that they are doing everything to make it possible for us to continue this partnership and save this story and tell it in different ways.
I mean, thank you, Ambassador. It's so true that my impetus for starting the Monastir Project was precisely because the love shown to me by the non-Jews. So it's the opposite of anti-Semitism. They are, what I found was that Macedonians, they didn't open up their arms to me out of a feeling of guilt for what happened during the war. Far from it. It's that they genuinely love Jewish culture and wish it was still a part of their history and their story today. They miss it, and that's why they're so eager to connect with Jewish culture, Jewish people, Jewish history. It's a phenomenon I've not experienced anywhere else. It is remarkable. Maja, I know Maja would like to say something.
So, as the ambassador said, there is no anti-Semitism here in Macedonia. But what I maybe didn't mention is that the Holocaust educational department is within an institution where the most of the employed are Muslims. So the director is Muslim, and the minister that inaugurated the department was a Muslim as well. So that's why this connection is very interesting, and it's speaking about our coexistence here in Macedonia and the importance of the Holocaust education is from the both sides, Macedonian and Albanian, and we are thankful for that. So I just wanted to mention this that I didn't mention before. Thank you.
Thank you.
And of course, we expect you all to light a candle with us on the 8th candle of Hanukkah.
Okay, I see one more question. Barry, Elias.
Sorry about that. I think our wires got crossed. So is it possible that these people who are non-Jews might be conversos and they might have been Jews?
No, not this group. No. They have stories that go so far back from grandparents and great-grandparents who have very specific connections to Jewish families that they know of, and bought a house from a Jewish family. Jews were part of the fabric of Monastir, and the next generations that grew up after the Holocaust knew this history, knew this story, and grew up in a city where there were no Jews, and they've missed it, and they want to connect with it, truly.
I have so many more questions. I'm surprised other people don't have questions. I saw that somebody asked in the chat if it would be possible for those who want to put their names on the list to be able to communicate with one another, because, for example, we see another Elias. Will you put together some kind of a mailing list for people who want to reach out to one another?
That's complicated for privacy reasons, but certainly.
No, but only the people who would sign up with you to do so, who are not trying to be private.
I'll look into it. I definitely will. I mean, I was curious how many people would participate in this event today, and just the fact that over 200 people had registered really speaks miles that there is such serious interest and people do want to connect with each other. So I definitely plan on harnessing that and doing what I can to help promote connections moving forward. So yes,
Thank you.
yes.
Sarah, I would like to
Yes.
I would like to invite everybody to be part of our Facebook group, the 1,000 Candles, and maybe communicate somehow through this group. And of course, put there your pictures and movies and all the activities regarding the 1,000 Menorah project.
Thank you. Yes, there is a Facebook group where you are invited to join, and
I will try to put it now the link on the chat.
Thank you. And I will send it as well in the follow-up. There are other Facebook groups as well to connect monastirlis. As someone pointed out, one of the most active ones is in Hebrew. So I will be working to create something for more of an English-speaking audience where I would encourage you to join and you can connect there. And I will make sure everybody gets that information.
There is the page of the Israeli Macedonian initiatives where you can see a lot of what was done in the last few years there. And I think, Sarah, you're a star there as well.
Yes, I'm a member of any Macedonian group on Facebook, so you can certainly ask me offline. Dana West has a question.
Hi, I was trying to unmute myself. My last name's West, but I was born Aroeste, and I was the one who had suggested, I don't know the easiest way, Sarah, but I was thinking maybe like a BCC, like if you sent out a confidential email inviting people to write back and then just send one to all the people who reply, then we would all be connected. Because I think there are so many, I'm trying to click on links and join groups while we're talking because I'm afraid that, I won't copy it correctly. And so maybe even just all the resources or something like that. But other than a BCC with people writing back, I couldn't think of an easier way. There's so many Aroestes just on this call. It's exciting.
But I do have everyone's emails, and I promise I will find a way to connect people. Mima, did you have a comment or a question? I see your hand is raised.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, think about this. By the end of the 19th century, there were around 9,000 Jews in Bitola. According to the Ottoman Empire records. And in the period after the First World War, which was 1919, the number was 3,000. Many of them left during a period of 25 to 30 years. And I suppose that most of the audience today are people that are descendants of those that have left. I'm talking about a big number of more 1,000 people. And if they had families, if we have a mathematician in the group, we may say that there are a lot of now out in the world. And it is so normal for you to want to get connected between us and to find maybe your relatives or not. But for us, it is also important to give you the chance to feel a spirit of Bitola from 100 years ago still living. And you taste that, Sarah. I do not have a Jewish origin, but I had a grandfather who was, in fact, the first owner of a factory for candies, of Turkish delight, lokum, and chocolates. And his son, my grandfather, was telling me about all the national holidays of all the ethnicities that were living in Bitola. So when I was a very small girl, I knew what Hanukkah is, and I knew that he was preparing special pishkotas for Hanukkah because they were coming to buy in the store. So if you have neighbors that are speaking a lot of languages and different cultures, and they're singing from one to the next neighborhood similar songs, then you can taste that here. Vlado is here with me here on in this auditorium. He is he has his personal stories about that. That is the way how these thousands of monasteries that are living abroad today can come and learn and reconnect through the project of the cemetery. The cemetery will give you a part of the story. The stones are incredible if you can read them. Unfortunately, I cannot. And many of you, it is not that easy. But we can create the net of the story as a reflection through your song, through the books that people are writing about, through stories that happened once in this small town. That is the idea. How many of you are out there? I believe a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's all.
Thank you, everyone, for participating. It really just, it warms my heart that so many people wanted to be a part of this. There will be follow-up, I can assure you. And all of this work really only happens because of the connections that we're all making across borders, across religions, across countries. It truly is because of these interpersonal connections that so many of these projects have sprouted up and will continue to flourish. So we will be calling upon you. We appreciate your being here. I want to say thank you again to my esteemed guests who have joined. They are really making all of this possible. So thank you for all of your work who got to speak today, and all of you who weren't on camera, but who have been such a big part of these relationships and my project in particular, and who have shown me so much love in Macedonia. So thank you, everybody. And please be in touch. I will provide contact information as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, so much. It was great.
Thank you. Bye-bye.